The 2025 campaign was an immense disappointment for the New York Mets. They were 45-24 with the MLB's best record at the time through their first 69 games. The starting rotation was on cruise control through these contests, bolstering an unbelievable 2.3 ERA. That was the key to their success. However, the season turned on a dime during the second half of the season when guys who were a huge part of the Mets' brief success went down with injuries, including Kodai Senga, who had an ERA of 1.47 through 13 starts before going down with a hamstring strain while trying to catch an errant throw from the Mets' first baseman, Pete Alonso, and a Griffin Cannon ruptured Achilles, who had a solid 7-3 record prior to his ailment. Since June 26, 2025, the date Canning suffered his gruesome injury against the Atlanta Braves, the Mets went on to go 36-45 in the remaining 81 games, finishing with an overall record of 83-79 and relinquishing the final wildcard spot to the Reds, who finished with the same exact record. Pitching was the glaring issue during that time, as guys both underperformed while many pitchers were on the shelf. Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas were both out to begin the season. When they both returned, their performances were a far cry from what it was expected to be. Not to mention, Kodai Senga's return from the IL didn't go as well either, as well as David Peterson, who had, hands down, the best first half of his career. Peterson was the only Mets starting pitcher who would consistently throw 6+ innings almost every start. The southpaw was so good in the first half of the season, he was selected to his first All-Star game. I don't know what monster took David's talent in the second half of the season as he pitched to an astoundingly high ERA of 6.34. Giving up more earned runs in his 12 starts, serving up 42 post-All-Star break compared to 37 through his first 18 starts. That has to be studied. This goes to show that it's obvious the Mets were thin on pitching and needed to do more during this trade deadline to get themselves back on track. They missed the playoffs by one game due to many poor pitching performances and were also lacking timely hits. The Reds, who edged out the Mets for the last wildcard spot, went on to get swept 2-0 against the eventual champs, the Dodgers, who closed out a seesaw battle of a series against the Toronto Blue Jays, who haven't won since 1993. That was the second year of their back-to-back. This year is the first time that a team has won 2 consecutive championships since the Yankees did it in 98, 99, and 2000. Now that the World Series is over and LA has been crowned champions once again, we have officially moved on to the offseason. The Mets have a lot of revamping to do this offseason to get prepared to compete in 2026. They have already done that with some coaching moves. I am in no shape or form in any power to make offseason decisions for the Mets front office, but I can make a wish list on who I think can be some good fits in Queens. So, let's get into it. The first player that I'm going to add to my wish list is Framber Valdez, the Houston Nationals lefty ace. While I have been hearing about this insane idea of the Mets trading for the Tigers Cy Young winner in Tariq Skubal, the Mets are in a dire need for quality starting pitchers, and Framber is beyond just a quality pitcher. He has a good pedigree with 2 All-Star selections and a championship ring that he has won in 2022 when the Astros defeated the Phillies. In that World Series, he made 2 starts mowing down the Phillies, only allowing 2 runs in 12 innings in the third. What's most impressive about Framber is the ability to give length, which the Mets were famished of. He threw 2 complete games this past season and 200 innings just as recently as 2022. That's a rare feat in today's game. He also came close this year, logging 192 innings and 198 in 2023. That displays durability. Zach Gallen. You can argue that last year was a down year for Zach, and I would agree with that. However, you can't take away the fact that he is still relatively young at only 30 years old, meaning that he can easily bounce back and provide the team a decent 5 more pitching years. Some pitchers improve into their 30s, which actually seems like the trend nowadays. If you don't believe me, look at guys like Zach Wheeler, Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Phil Niekro, Jamie Moyer, R.A. Dickey, and more. All of these pitchers had some good years while in their 20s, but seem to have hit their prime and flourished in their 30s. Hopefully this is the case with Zach. The 2023 All-Star has had some pretty impressive seasons in the past, showing he is a very valuable MLB starter. Not to mention, he is one of those rare durable pitchers just like Framber Valdez, making 95 starts in the past 3 seasons. The good news about his down year is that he will probably give the next team a bit of a bargain only because his value has dipped just a little. He was offered the $22 million qualifying offer and rejected it. Unfortunately, Scott Boras is his agent, so he will still be seeking a multi-year contract and will look to be incentivized in every way possible. The starting rotation that I desire should be set. You have Framber Valdez and Zach Gallen at the top of your rotation with McLean, Senga, Peterson, and Manaea to round out the rotation. Now, we need some bullpen help. Clay Holmes is one guy that I feel should be pushed in the bullpen to serve as the long man. We potentially might need another long man, but that's up to the Mets to decide who that next long man should be. That certainly would help on the days that we don't have any length from our starter. But the most crucial bullpen spot is the closer. Currently, the Mets have a vacancy in that spot. Let's be real. There is not a better fit than bringing Edwin Diaz back home to Queens to don the orange and blue. First and foremost, Diaz was absolutely spectacular this past season. With the exception of the resurgent Aroldis Chapman and Andres Munoz, Diaz might have been the best closer in all of baseball last year, just 2 years removed from his tragic season-ending injury, right patellar tendon tear, during the 2023 World Baseball Classic while representing Team Puerto Rico. While 2024 didn't treat him too badly, you could tell he was still finding his footing that year. But us Met fans will never forget about the magical 2022 season where Diaz was utterly dominant, being part of a 101-win Mets team. He also made Narco a national anthem at Citi Field. Even though Diaz was not initially brought up to the big leagues by the Mets, it feels like we have adopted him and really made him ours. So, let's sound them trumpets and keep him in the Mets uniform for a little while longer. Speaking of dominance, I present to you the next guy on my list, Robert Suarez. Suarez is a late bloomer who made his major league debut at the age of 31 years old. His career ERA is 2.91 in 210 innings of work. Though he arrived to the MLB a little tardy, he has made his mark early and been nothing short of brilliant as a late innings kind of reliever. He officially got the promotion of being the Padres closer last season in 2024, in which he saved 36 games. The 6'2", 210-pound right-handed flamethrower improved his save total with 40 during the 2025 season. The 34-year-old can certainly be a valuable piece for the New York Mets as the setup man to Edwin Diaz, or he can be the primary closer if we are not able to come to terms with Diaz. Tyler Rogers. While us Met fans didn't get to see the best version of Rogers, he wasn't bad at all. In fact, he was quite good, as he had a 2.30 ERA in 28 appearances for us. That's pretty good for any pitcher. It just felt like he lost some gas at the end of the long, extensive MLB season. It's even more exhausting to come from one MLB team to join another organization, especially mid-season. You have to completely adjust to your new settings, especially for Rogers, who had to adjust his internal clock considering he had to come from the West Coast in San Francisco to New York, which is 3 hours apart. What I especially like about the sidearmer's game is the ability to consistently throw strikes and being able to seamlessly make 3 consecutive appearances. Plus, given the assets the Mets gave up to acquire him, it only makes sense to bring him back. Now, let's shift to the offense. I am not a huge fan of an all-or-nothing approach to hitting, and Kyle Schwarber seems to be your typical 3-result kind of batter. Either he hits a home run, walk, or strike out. With Schwarber, I make an exception. He's the epitome of a designated hitter. This lefty slugger has no position on the field, but he'll slug you some mammoth bombs throughout the course of the season. He has mashed 40-plus jacks in 3 of his last 4 seasons, including the 56 from this year, marking his career high. He is a nightmare for opposing pitchers. The Mets have not had a legitimate DH since the inception of the DH in 2022. JD Martinez was the Mets DH in 2024, but his best days were behind him by then. While there will be situations where Kyle will leave you disappointed when he strikes out in a critical part of the game, he'll also have Citi Field rocking with one swing when he hits a clutch home run or 4 long balls in a game like he did against the Atlanta Braves on August 28, 2025. All in all, you already know what to expect from Schwarber. Harrison Bader. In case you were wondering, no, I am not trying to collect Philly free agent players. But if you examine our 2025 season, you will realize that we had very little offensive contributions from all three of our center fielders. Initially, we started the year with Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri platooning. Jose Siri only played in 10 games before fracturing his tibia on a foul ball that hit his left shin. So Taylor took over as the starting center fielder. Tyrone's a tremendous defender in center field, but cannot hit a lick, which isn't an issue since that is his game, but there's more pressure on you when you become a starter and you are an integral part of the lineup. Therefore, teams expect more offensive productivity. As a result, the Mets threw Jeff McNeil out there on a few occasions after he started the season on the injured list. He held his own and provided a bit more offense, but not a defensive wizard like Taylor. It certainly doesn't help that the flying squirrel is a shell of himself offensively. To solve that issue, the Mets then traded for Cedric Mullins, who was supposed to be an offensive upgrade over Taylor during the trade deadline. Yet, Mullins wasn't much of a factor as a hitter. Cedric, who once had a 30-30 season as a member of the Baltimore Orioles, went 22 for 121 with just 2 measly home runs. Mullins offensively was lacking so much to the point where we were excited when Siri was coming off the IL. Jose turned out to be just as much of a disappointment as Mullins and was eventually designated for assignment on September 24th, 2025. Also part of that Tyler Rogers trade that I mentioned earlier, the Mets shipped one of their top prospects in Drew Gilbert, who is also a center fielder and would have been the Mets' future center fielder. Bader, who was a Met during the 2024 campaign, would have been very useful for us. Prior to the 2025 season, he signed a short one-year deal with the Minnesota Twins and was then traded to the Phillies around the trade deadline. Harrison burst onto the scene with the Phillies and had overall his best offensive season, batting .277 and popped a career-high 17 taters in 146 games while maintaining his reputation as a remarkable glove out there in center field. He is not a long-term solution, but he'd be an excellent bridge for 1 or 2 years until Jet Williams or Carson Bench is ready to come up. I am hoping that Bader has fully hit his stride offensively. Pete Alonso. As a diehard Mets fan, this one is obvious. Bring back the polar bear.
All right. All right, so guys, let's hold that for the end, okay?
I've watched the emergence of Pete Alonso from his rookie year when he socked 53 long balls to now. But the reason why this is a no-brainer goes far beyond my admiration for Pete as a loyal Mets fan. He consistently hits 30-plus home runs a year with ease, even in his quote-unquote down years. Last free agency was a weird one for Pete, because he was coming off a disappointing year by his standards, so teams were reluctant to dishing out a long-term contract. Especially David Stearns, who has a small market mindset. Pete and his agent Scott Boras scoured the market to see if they could get a lucrative deal, but were unsuccessful. Pete had to settle for a short-term deal, re-signing with our beloved Mets for a 2-year, $54 million deal with an opt-out, which we all expected him to exercise if he had himself a bounce-back year. Months later, in November 2025, after penciling his name as the Mets' all-time home run leader, breaking Darryl Strawberry's record of 252 long balls in 2025, it's deja vu as the polar bear is once again a free agent. We can only hope this time that the negotiation process goes much smoother than it did last year for both parties, because the polar bear deserves to be right back in his natural habitat in Queens.
And Pete drives one to deep right center field, headed back toward the wall. It's out of here! Out of here! Pete Alonso stands alone! The polar bear on his own private iceberg. Pete Alonso, the most prolific home run hitter in New York Mets history. 253 home runs, more than any Met has ever hit in the blue and orange. Pete Alonso breaks Darryl's mark.
Look at that smile. There's Alonso.
I have kept my wish list as short as I possibly can, addressing the glaring issues that the Mets had this past season. There are a lot of trade rumors right now, especially surrounding the Mets, as they always seem to be involved in. There are also other names worth mentioning, such as free agents like Ranger Suarez, Dylan Cease, Michael King, Tatsuya Imai, Luis Roberts Jr., and Munetake Murakami. Potential trade targets such as Tariq Skubal, Ketel Marte, Jarren Durant could all possibly be intriguing fits for New York. However, trades are always complicated, so that's why I tend to stay away from that topic and let the experts do their jobs. Obviously, the Mets have a bunch of holes to fill, and that is David Stern's responsibility to fill the best team possible, especially after they completely fell flat on their face in 2025. For now, all we can do is hope the Mets front office is aggressive and shrewd this winter. The 2025 season was an agonizing reminder of how fast things can fall apart throughout the baseball season. Nevertheless, the correct moves could certainly make 2026 a different tale. So, with that said, let the hot stove heat up. Hey Mets fans, I would like for you to comment down below who you think should be donning the orange and blue next season. Let's get creative. You guys can write down some interesting trade proposals or list guys you think I missed out on. Just remember, from our couch, we are all GMs. And always, let's go Mets. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit that subscribe button so you can get more content, and please share. Again, thank you. Slugger out.